Very good, thank you. So let's open up the Q&A session. So Jim and, I'm sorry.
You have to repeat the question.
I will repeat the question. So Jim, let me repeat the question. It is bringing the level of security up to the level of security on a wired connection, correct?
I'd love to take that one. So in 2002, Cisco was challenged by one of my largest financial enterprise customers who physically cut the power cord to all their access points and said, we will not turn these back on again until you find something for us. And at the time, Cisco went back to the drawing board, and we went back to a LAN-based standard called 802.1x. And we came up with a methodology, although there was some holes found at the time, called LEAP, which allowed you to use dynamic credentials that were revocable as your credential to not only authenticate you to your network and the network to authenticate you, but the ability to provide a dynamic encryption key to those users. So people who have implemented an 802.1x security scheme and one of the more secure authentication methodologies that include the SSL tunneling capability. There's a couple of them out there. Microsoft had a few, Cisco had a few. There's a couple of base standards out there. The cellular industry uses something called EAP SIM, right? It's just a methodology of exchanging secure credentials and providing a dynamic encryption key. Since the Cisco and then eventually the Wi-Fi standard added something called TKIP, which is a method to change per user encryption keys, that technology has not been broken. And that's been since 2002. So if it's implemented, right, secure wireless technology is actually, it's funny because I would go into these presentations and everybody would say to me, but people are plugging in rogue access points to my switch network. I said, well, that's not a wireless problem. That's because you don't have 802.1x on your switch ports and people are plugging in unsecure devices to your wired network. So wireless security is out there, it's just not implemented. I think it was about 2 weeks ago in the news that this publisher was surprised because somebody else on the plane saw his unencrypted communication with Boingo, and he came out and trashed Boingo. I think their stock even dropped because he wasn't using a VPN. You know, I didn't realize wireless was, you know, unsecure. So, okay, maybe we owe it to the lay community, if you will, to understand. But you know, kitty scripts to be able to steal Facebook tokens have been out there for quite some time. So, you know, unsecure Wi-Fi networks have been vulnerable for very long periods of time. Very simply, I mean, you could get the Chrome app to decode your Facebook cookies. But the capabilities are there. The challenge you have is in the simplicity of adoption, right, of these methodologies to exchange these keys, right? And we have a beautiful standard out there. It's called 802.11u, and people know it by something called Passpoint or Hotspot 2.0, right? And there's Passpoint v1, there's Passpoint v2, right? These are great capabilities, but they need to be implemented. You got a three-part problem, right? The device itself needs to be able to have the underlying technology. Then the people who provide that technology to you, the cellular providers, need to be able to position these credentials on these phones, and they need to work with the Wi-Fi providers so that they can use those credentials to securely authenticate you to the network. If those three pieces came together, they're all there. It's all there to be done, right? Time Warner does a secure 802.1x Wi-Fi offering. If I'm a Time Warner sub at one of my places, I can log into a Time Warner hotspot using my credentials in a secure 802.1x network. I probably still do VPN on top of that because my company requires me to, but I'm very happy with the security providers. Boingo, if you use a Boingo hotspot, Boingo allows you to do an 802.1x capability using their software that you can put on your phone or on your laptop. So the capabilities are all there. We just need everybody to work better together.
Very good. Steve, let me take you real quick. So let me repeat the question. Apple or FBI?
Apple.
Apple. You want to vote?
Are you allowed to?
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's. I don't think the phone is actually encrypted. I think it's just passkey coded. I think the data is still unencrypted in the phone, from a technology perspective. I don't think the data in the phone is actually encrypted.
Yeah.
Is that Apple or FBI?
That's the FBI. The FBI needs to figure it out.
Well, and this is what gets me, that they've distilled the argument down to that simple question, and it's really not that simple. I mean, because there is the government is not really coming forward with the request. They want a backdoor for everybody. They're not just saying, here's a phone, break it open. They're saying, give us a way to break open every phone. And that's where Apple, I think, is making a marketing mistake. They are a little bit, they're going back and saying, no, they want to be able to break open all the phones, not just this one. And that's where they need to make their argument.
All right, I'm with you. They need to make it much more clear what the intent is, and we've got other smart people around the world that could crack a single device.
Because if the FBI has that opening, then you're going to get Chinese hackers in there, you're going to get Russian hackers in there, and this is where the problem lies. And this is what Cook is trying to say. He's not eloquent in making that argument.
Okay, yeah. What percentage is monetized via advertising?
So, let me just talk from Cox's perspective. I don't know about industry-wide, but, when we look at how we're actually doing it, we definitely are doing primarily first priorities in terms of churn reduction. So we don't necessarily want to have a lot of advertisements out there on our portal pages and things along those lines. We we also do sponsored ads, all right? So in certain hospitality venues or certain specific venues that we actually may offer Wi-Fi that people actually pay for us to put in, that's an opportunity where we actually may put advertising dollars out there. I don't necessarily have a percentage there. It's growing. I think we are looking at creative ways to make it more accessible without being intrusive to the user experience, but it's definitely something that we continue to look at.
It's not significant at this point. It's something that has to grow to make it pay for itself. But today it is a customer satisfaction piece. Tomorrow we'll figure out ways to monetize it further. But it's coming.
So summarize the question again. So when you buy a device, you're saying, why wouldn't it already come with service, regardless of who's providing the service? Okay.
Margins are better on the device, and they don't want to get into the service industry.
I think it comes down to ownership of the client, right? These guys want to own the client, right? Whereas the cellular companies want to own the client. If they were to ubiquitously allow you to roam onto their network, then they would have no ownership of you. So then, therefore, they'd have to charge whoever's providing you the service.
Fair.
And at the end of the day, your bill would be this instead of that, right?
How do we see NFV impacting the delivery and SDN as well? NFV and SDN, what are the impacts and how do we see the impacts?
Well, I think from the way we look at virtualization, we think it is makes it easier to deploy. We think it makes it a lower cost standpoint, and that you can have that hardware out there. You can make those changes in the back of the network and push new services and new applications out more readily, faster to the end user. And we have to be in that particular response because nowadays, you can't just go through a 12 to 18-month development cycle. You have to be able to respond quickly with new services, and I think virtualization helps facilitate that type of interactive experience to the customer.
Yeah,
This is a bad.
Can we comment on FCC net neutrality. That's a slippery slope. You guys are welcome to decline, but any general observations?
I think you hold it hostage until they give you more spectrum.
No comment.
Very
Tom
wise.
Wheeler needs a job after this administration, so I think that's what he's trying to set up.
Very good. That's the end of the Q&A session. Caroline. Big round of applause.